What's the matter?
Okay, now we're good. I'm live.
Hi. Oh, there we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me know how I sound. Hey, you sound like you're from New York. Hey, very good. Audio's good. All right. So, yeah, another good week. Another very good week. Lots of testing went on wormling, on hatchery, and on fledgling. So, a lot to talk about. We're hoping to have 2 tests this weekend. Once again, for our Beta 1 folks on wormling, and another test on fledgling, but for our alpha guys and IT guys. But we're not sure yet. I'll let you know probably in the next hour or so, certainly before it gets too late. So let's start with the top 10-ish, because I think there's 15 in the top 10-ish today. So first, work in progress, tech, rendering improvements. Let's quote George today. I'm on a rampage. No, he says it right there. He's on a rampage. I'm not on a rampage. I'm in a really good mood. But yes, he's on a rampage. Lots of improvements to the system. All of them, of course, detailed in the top 10-ish. But just to give you some titles, HDR eye adjustment stability, unlit objects, ambient lighting, bloom, and shadows. Still miss Bloom County. What a great comic. Second item, work in progress, encumbrance penalties. As you folks saw, and by the way, those improvements will certainly be on wormling, and I think they'll be on fledgling as well. So number 2, encumbrance penalties. First step of that went in this week. As you folks remember, we talked about way back when in the Kickstarter about old school carrying capacity. You know, we don't limit you by how many bags you can find somebody to make for you. We limit you by weight. So obviously we kind of have to have encumbrance penalties, so you can't just, carry as much weight as your typical, 5,000 pound mammal. So that went in, tested, worked fine. Not perfectly, because we didn't turn on all functionality, like you shouldn't be able to walk when your encumbrance reaches a certain point, but we didn't want that in yet. Next, combat improvements. So yeah, this is all part of making the rehabilitation system actually seem worthwhile. Because what's the point of having this great and powerful ability crafting system if you can't then make them look good? So it all boils down to, and there's another item that talks about this as well, tagging. And what tagging means is we can attach tags, words, to various things, whether it's involved in crafting or abilities, that then the system will essentially procedurally generate the animation. Kind of handy, because other than if we didn't have that, I think Scott and Sandra would probably be dead by the end of the year trying to keep up with all the animations they'd have to create. Yeah, Scott's nodding his head. Yes, yes, yes. So we had to have this kind of functionality. So that's an ongoing thing. Really important. It is really cool. Seamless zone transitions. Almost there. Quote Maxwell Smart, missed it by that much. We're really close, though. Really close. We've almost got it in Beta 1 shape. I don't mean working. It's working great. But there is still, every so often, there's a hiccup or somebody sees a loading screen. We want 0. Absolutely 0. We want it to track your movement speed, which it's doing now better. You have to be able to carry your effects onto another server. All of that's going in. But if you've been in our multi-zone test so far, or multi-server test so far, you've seen the improvement. It's going very well. Siege engines. So yeah, about friggin' time, right? I know you folks have been so patient in waiting for us, not only to get into beta 1, but to even have things that make it look like a game again. And if you were in our test this week, and hopefully this weekend as well, you'll see the first pass of the Siege engines. They are not hooked up to their real animations yet, because we haven't made their real animations yet, but they actually work. You can load them with bolts, even though they're arrows right now. You can fire them. They will damage buildings. You have different aiming modes for them. We've been able to have lots of Siege engines in the game, all being fired, by players, all damaging buildings, and everything really ran great. So more work, but boy, lots of progress. Support for the crafting UI. So once again, thank you, MeHuge. This is kind of going to be an ongoing thing. We are working with him to make more improvements to it. And as we've said from the beginning, it's certainly better than / command and way better than the / command. So not even just a little bit better, so much better. I know you folks, when we announced crafting for beta 1, I told you all it would be / command based. So I know you folks are going to be happy with what MeHuge has done. And if you're not happy, just tell us. Talk to us. Don't blame him. This is us. Talk to us about what changes you want to see, and we'll see what we can do. Character inventory. So yeah, some of you folks got to meet our youngest and newest programmer here, AJ, and he was streaming his work on the inventory sheet for the game. Looks pretty good from what we saw based on your all's reaction. You thought it was a great first step. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, not the finished one. Obviously, not all done. And most obviously, programmer art, even though JB was proud of, hey, it still looks good, which it actually does. It's only better than I would have done. But that's in. We should be testing it hopefully in the office next week, and then hopefully the week after that with you folks. Next, ability SFX and VFX tagging. So, just as I said earlier, it's all about the tags, and this applies throughout our game. So super important when you want to have a crafted ability system, crafted animations essentially in a game. So that is moving along really well. Great Axe animation and torch setup. So you'll see in today's update what Scott did with a Great Axe animation. Bit of flair, bit of style, a little more than just a basic Great Axe attack. So I hope you folks like it. There'll be links, of course, of where to go to find it. Again, keep in mind that this is all part of our, it says handy in here, but I don't think handy is quite the right word to describe how useful the way, whether it's tagging or the Frankensteining of the animation system really is. I mean, again, we have so many combinations of things, and for our animators to be able to go, hey, let's take this, this, and this, and just put it all together without them having to put that actually together in the way you normally would do it in most games, such a time saver, and it's looking really good, and especially for a first pass. And Scott keeps nodding his head up and down. This is great. He's really just doing like this. If he goes from side to side, it'll be like the old Freddie Prinze routine. For most of you won't even know who Freddie Prinze was. Great comedian from the old days. Torch animations. So yeah, more work on torch animations because it's as I said the first time when we talked about different torches per realm, that it might seem a little silly that we're spending any cycles on this, but actually it isn't, and it's going to look really good. It really is looking really good. Dock assets. So yeah, we added a dock, and because it went so well, we're adding more dock. So again, just as last week, just as it will be next week. It's all about making our build feel more like a game. And so whether it's the dock that looks real and has boats and has sound and has, better looking water, all of that, it's all part of giving you guys and gals a better Beta 1. And that's what we're doing. Realm specific statues. Well, yeah, since, we're going to have portals and various ways of moving using our seamless animation system, we thought it was kind of a good idea to actually have realm specific, portals and other things. So John's been working on that. Weapon Foley, which is DB was using or was doing for sound. One of those things that doesn't sound terribly exciting, but it's really important, and we actually have a cute picture for you folks in the update. It's really important that if we are going to spend money on having somebody like DB, is that, we take full advantage of him and have him create sounds for anything we can think of. So that, when a certain weapon is hitting a certain piece of armor, when it's hitting a certain material, that it actually sounds good. And that's what he's been working on. Last and certainly least, from design, crafting stones. I added a bunch of stones to the game, something like 100. It's all in the database right now. Next week I'll be moving onto recipes for them, so you'll be able to craft, specific blocks out of the specific stones. Some of them, at least, that I put in the database. So yeah, that's it on the top 15-ish. Today is a user story day. We won't have another one for a month. We wanted to get on the proper cadence, so instead of waiting 4 weeks between the last one, we only waited 3 weeks this time. And just as we said last week, user stories once a month, and then we'll be doing the top 10-ish as well. So you'll always have something from us. It just won't be the user stories every second week. And in terms of the user stories, I'll simply say we got a whole bunch of completes, a whole bunch of cards, including a couple new cards. And so, that's all good, really good. So let's see, quarter after, we'll start Q&A in a couple minutes. Ended at 5. I don't want to go too long. Things to do, mainly get the update out today. And I also want to check on where we are in terms of testing. To recap, lots of great things went in this week. A whole bunch of great things went in, as a matter of fact. Testing went beautifully. I mean, if you were part of the test, you saw how everything ran. I think we had 2 crashes all week, which is just great for what we're doing, because what we're doing is certainly not easy, and that's not a bad number at all, especially when one of those crashes, was 3, and one of them we caused ourselves, so that's where the 2 comes from. I want to be accurate with you folks. So yeah, testing went great. You saw buildings, go up. You saw buildings get destroyed. You saw the Scorpions fire. You saw the different aiming modes for the Scorpions. You were able to take a Scorpion out of your backpack, deploy it, load it, reload it, all that good stuff. So, great start. Unfortunately, the guy who has been working on Siege Engines won't be here next week, so I can't promise you anything big and new there, but there'll certainly be other things that will go in that will be involved in testing during the week as well. We certainly want to keep up this kind of cadence where we have certainly one official test every week if we can. Having 2 would be great, like we are hoping to have again this week, so the beta folks can get a look at things like VFX, and then hopefully next week, depending on how well our changes or the changes that went in this week regarding Siege Engines went, we might bring your beta guys in to blow stuff up as well next week. So, yeah, that's it. Again, a great week. Lots of happiness around the office, lots of good testing, and just, yeah, it's so nice to have the right size programming, team for the first time in, sadly, 4 years. So that's it, and let's get to the Q&A.
Who are you?
Turn the stove off. Did I hear a dog?
Do you like my shirt?
When are this?
Is this my spleen?
Now it is time to answer some questions.
First question, CU Relic. Can you explain a little bit more about the caravan looting? If Vikings are transporting a caravan and are overrun by Arthurians, do the Arthurians loot the actual items from the Viking caravan, or is it more like simulated looting? If any looting, simulated or otherwise happens, what rules determine who will get what?
So that is a really complicated question, especially the second half. So let me simply talk about the first half, which is taking caravans out has to come with risk. We've said this right from the beginning. So you will absolutely lose some things. How much you lose and what you lose, how you lose it, that's stuff that we'll talk about. It won't be, oh my God, you lose everything. And keep in mind, folks, that when it comes to caravans, a lot of the stuff you're going to be caravanning is heavy. And so if you think about it for a moment and you go, gee, we're transporting all these giant stones, and look, there are those 5 nasty, miserable, terrible, horrible invaders who, knocked off our caravan. Good luck getting the stones out if you kill the creatures. So, when you worry about looting, when you worry about what you're going to lose, keep in mind that unless you're loading up the family jewels on the caravan versus a lot of the heavy gear, the chances of them being able to take a lot of the stuff is just not going to happen. I mean, that's been the plan right from the beginning. It's one of the advantages of having a caravan system and an inventory system where weight matters. So will there be some loss? Absolutely. Will it be, oh my God, I might as well quit the game, because I just lost this? No, because remember, just as we said from the beginning, when it comes to player looting, you are not going to be able to loot a player's corpse for everything they have. We've been really, really clear about that.
Odovic asks, Rager wanted me to say, the more we learn about the combat system, the more and more it seems like it's going to be quite complex, but very little RNG. Are we losing sight of the fundamental principle number 8? This should be a chaotic game with epic surprises at every turn.
Not at all. RNG does play a part. Just keep in mind that RNG, in order to have epic surprises, having to have a bit of chaos, doesn't mean every time you swing a sword that you don't know if you're going to do 4 points of damage or 400 points of damage. RNG can play a lot of varied roles within a combat system as well as a world event system. And that's what that foundational principle was all about. It wasn't simply, hey, every sword swing, there's going to be this huge potential for RNG, or with every magic spell. These are very different things. RNG is going to play a role in this game. We've said it will. Epic surprises absolutely will play a role in the game. But if it's simply, hey, my sword swing can do everything from 1 point to 1,000 points, well, that's not going to be a lot of fun for anybody. Well, for most people at least, especially in an RVR game. So RNG is going to be tempered, as it's always intended to be. In those situations, it does affect things, but it's not supposed to be crazy. It can, however, play a very interesting role in things, for example, like spell backfire, or as we've talked about, veil storms coming out, or oh look, you slipped on that banana peel, that sort of thing.
Okay. CU Rec asks, are the effects of armor encumbrance universal, or are they determined by the slot you have in the armor?
Yeah, I know what he means. No, it's just that right now, as far as I know, it's just overall weight. That's, how I laid it out. I don't think we're doing anything else in terms of like your arm can support X percentage of it.
That's what he asks. There's
Yeah.
an example. Would there be
Yeah,
a
I know.
difference? Okay. So that's good.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Forced Chaos. Are you worried about the min-maxers with spreadsheets that they'll figure out the best builds for classes and post them, making the ability system crafting pointless because everybody will just use those?
I love min-maxers. I absolutely love min-maxers. We've talked about this from the Dark Age days, talked about this, at other times. I have no problem with min-maxers in this game, especially because it is a complicated system. And when you say what's the best build, well, the best build for what, right? Min-maxers, certainly in games that are PvE focused, that you really know what your character is going to be doing on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. It's very easy for min-maxers there to prepare builds that become the flavor of the month. We've been talking about this as well, as you know, Force Chaos, right from the beginning. In this sort of game, because there are so many different things you could be doing and so many different types of people you're going to be meeting, so many different classes, and classes with their own ability system, it's going to be a lot harder for the min-maxers to simply say, this is the best build, for your Duahan. This is the one you have to use. Well, do you mean using that in combat, small group combat, large group combat, sieges, in the depths? So I do expect the min-maxers are going to have a lot of fun with this. That's what we want. But not to the point where I think it's going to be, this is the best build overall, because so many things are different about this game in terms of how you are going to play it, as well as what you're going to encounter in it.
Odovic asks for Veruca. For Realm Caravans, if I have a castle-built site and a quarry, how do I call up a caravan to connect the two? Is it automatic, or do we have to first build some sort of terminal for shifting goods generally, say a pile of iron ore, or how do I shift this home?
I get it. That's fine. I get it. It's a cash shop item. I mean, obviously you have to. Just joking. The actual interface, we haven't even started yet. There's no point. We didn't plan on, caravans for the opening of Beta 1. So, if I have to think on the spot, because really it's not something I've worried about, is that there will be a very simple interface. There'll be ways that, you can interact with NPCs that will allow you to have a caravan sent to your place to pick it up, or you can work with players to do it. That's what I'm hoping we have. And if that doesn't work, then they'll have to go to a caravan terminal and go like a horse route from one area to the next. I would like it to be more freeform than that. We'll just have to see how that works out.
Don Cappuccino asks, will the depths be in at launch? Sounds so amazing. What else can you tell me about it?
We're not promising anything that we didn't promise, Don, in the Kickstarter. We can't. We're late. I would love to expand on it. I would love to, spend a lot of time right now actually talking about it. What I can say, and it's really simple, and I've said this before, is that if you like Darkness Falls, if you like RVR-style dungeons, and you also like your dungeons a bit darker, a bit, more sexualized, because we've talked about Giga's work, things that you don't find in your typical Tolkien, like dungeon, then you'll love the depths. If you're looking for more standard things, not there. That is not standard. The place is. If you've read the story on Nuada, you'll get an idea of what the depths are like. that is where we really want to go with this, and I have no doubt we can make it happen. None at all.
Epsilon QC asks, once we get into beta 1, now what? What would be needed and planned for beta 2?
Oh God, let's focus on beta 1, please. The key for beta 1 versus beta 2 is we don't go into beta 2 unless we know beta 1 is done. And by done, I mean that we've accomplished the goals. So what are some of the major goals? Obviously, to get the first trio per realm working, class trio, working per realm. So very important, right? We have to have that working. Siege, that has to work. And if that is working, then hopefully building destruction is working, because that's another thing that we really need before we can call beta 2. There are so many there's so many aspects of the game that will be in beta 1, even if they're not in for launch, that it's hard to say what will trigger a beta 2, because if things are going really well in beta 1, maybe we speed up some of the things that were originally going to be in beta 2, like additional classes. Additional races is easy, because races don't come with a lot of abilities. They come with some, but not many. So adding races earlier to beta 1, that could happen. Adding classes to beta 1 early would be a great sign. Yeah, things like that. Beta 1 is really about, at the end of the day, testing so many of the core systems and mechanics for the game, and making sure they work the way we need them to.
There's a question after that saying how much of the game is done in percentage? 50, 20.
Oh God, I couldn't. There's no number that I could give you that would make any sense. What I can say, without giving an exact number, because again, this is not something we do. It's not something most game developers, well, honestly talk about, is how much of our core tech is done. And that is so important. That, we can't go out of beta 1, come out of beta 1, until we can look at the core tech, everything that we built for beta 1, and say, yep, worked the way we needed it to. So that means large-scale battles. Now, will it be 1,000? Will it be 500? Will it be 300? We'll see where we're at. But that is, God, more than anything else, that's when we can come out of beta 1, is that when we're sure all that core tech, the classes that are in, the crafting, all of that is working the way we need it to.
There's a request, I guess, from Stern Taylor. It's a German European community manager back in the days of Warhammer, Ayok. They're wondering if you wanted to bring him back on board or reach out to him. You know who that might be?
Not familiar with him from the Warhammer days. And in terms of Dayak, my apologies. The name sounds familiar, but I don't want to lie and say, yes, I absolutely remember the person.
Odovig asks, Rhaegar is wondering if will there be stealth tough enough to fill the rank role in a group? You said you had no interest in doing stealth. That was a glass cannon. Again, that is stealth in CU. Will much be more robust? Yeah, well, it has to be, right? Because if you go back to what we've said regarding stealth so far, is that our stealth system is not your typical, WoW stun lock or any of the other kinds of stealth we've seen to date. If our stealth guys can't fill a role in a group, we've done something wrong and we need to change stealth. And as much as I would hate to do this, go a bit more tropish, though I'd prefer not to do that. I want our stealth guys to fill a role. Remember, stealth is broken down essentially into different types of stealthers. But we absolutely, positively, 100% are designing the majors. I don't want to say major because the scouts, people could end up liking those more. But the non-scouts to absolutely fill a slot in whatever group size, we end up with. Audrey Cortesa says or asks about caravans. Is it possible to kidnap enemies' caravan animals and leading them into your territory?
Sure. But if I were running that caravan, I would kill the animals to make your life miserable. You know, because that's frankly what they should do. Otherwise, you could take their stuff.
Odovic asking again for Rhaegar. Back when we were still calling them Vale Walkers, we thought that all three realms, VW, were going to be a good disruption, but in their class reveal, nowhere does the red cap mention disruption. So will all three be good at disruption, or will the Vale Stalker and Shadow Walker?
Yeah. So that's something that obviously, when you look at how the classes are evolving and will continue to evolve, we'll be looking at all the classes and make sure, that they fit the right roles. So don't worry about if you've seen what we've talked about before and you're worrying that, hey, we haven't talked about disruption or some other mechanic we put in for the other classes, and then the other 21 aren't, that isn't discussed for them. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be It's not going to be an issue.
Casper 23, will you guys be selling swag again soon? If so, will it be Realm Pacific swag, i.e. TDD shirts and hats and hoodies?
Sure, I'd like to do that once we get into beta. No distractions. I don't want to take any of my time. I don't want to take anybody else's time making swag to sell. We need to focus on one thing. Almost anything that we are doing, because you can't say everything we're doing will get us into beta faster, but we want to make sure that we are trying to do everything we can to get into beta as fast as possible, and at the same time not being distracted by things, like swag. Because as much as I wouldn't mind a little extra money, it's not at all worth the amount of time it would take away from me and the artists and Max to make this happen.
Odovic asks for Salt Lake. Are their stat soft caps static, or are they influenced by starting stat allocation? Example, will a player who pumps points into strength have a different soft cap for strength than a player with the same race who does not?
Yeah, Ben and I have discussed this. Obviously, certain games that we all know allow you to raise the soft cap or the hard cap. So that's something that we'll just see how it works out when we have everything, good to go. As far as I'm concerned, I have no trouble, at least design-wise, no problem, with having a soft cap that can be higher.
Don Cappuccino asks, when or what was the next stretch goal?
Not even talking about it. We don't deserve to have another stretch goal. We have to get into beta. That's all that matters. Putting up another stretch goal, even if it's the most fantastic stretch goal ever, thought of, we haven't earned the right. We have to get into beta before we put up another stretch goal.
Odovic asks for Bad Lunar Rising. What might body part damage affect a caster class? Would it weaken the DPS a bit, slow the casting speed, or maybe a combination of these, or maybe limit certain magic spells?
Exactly. It's the combination is key, obviously, because it depends on obviously what type of caster you are, where your magic emanates from. But yeah, obviously, mages can't be immune to body damage in that sense. If other combatants aren't. It wouldn't be fair.
Arcane Cloister asks, how will you balance the siege how will you balance the siege engine's power?
Oh, that's easy. Of all the things that I worry about, the power of the siege engines is just not one of them. The nice thing about siege engines is, unlike your typical combatants, they don't fire very quickly. They have loading time. You have to aim. It's they are not going to be siege engines in a box that you can just, like it is now, where you can just take them out of your sack and throw it down. So balancing them, that will be, you don't want to say it's trivial, because very little is trivial when it comes to design, and when there's going to be lots of iteration on it. But because of the way the system is going to work, I am so not worried about that.
Bad Lunar Rising asks, if and when Veil Walkers are brought into the game, will they be able to gather special crafting materials from within the Veil that could be used by crafters? If so, and the items crafted provided a special ability, would it draw anger from the Veil towards players using those crafted items if the abilities are used too much?
Yeah, great question. You're absolutely right. In a perfect world, that's pretty close to how I would like it to work, actually. So good on you. But yes, in, again, perfect world, that's what we would do. One of the things that would happen in the Veil. Not promising, because it wasn't part, of either the original Kickstarter or things that we have talked about publicly. But yes, I would love to be able to do that. It makes sense for a whole lot of reasons. And again, excellent question.
Marmos asks, Dayak had a pretty big and rich community when it came to 8 versus 8 set groups. While there never was official support, it got bigger and bigger. Are there any plans that you will provide at least some support for group versus group PvP, or is it Zerg and Siege, Zerg versus Siege, the only intended playstyle?
Well, we've said the exact opposite, actually. We are doing things to discourage the Zerg as being the playstyle of choice, because that's what it all boils down to at the end of the day. Players are going to, whether they're min-maxers or not, actually, sort of usually min-max their playing experience. What will allow them to reach their goals in the most efficient way possible. And so if it's the Zerg, people are going to Zerg. It's that simple. Not necessarily everybody, but most people will. So in our game, since we've said right from the beginning, and this goes back to even before the Kickstarter, that we don't want our game to be all about the Zerg, then there are things that we're going to be doing to absolutely make their life harder. Not to prevent the Zerg, because anytime you say that, you generally will be wrong, but to make it a less preferred and a much less efficient playstyle.
Okay, this is a serious question. When building roads, is it true that building roads in circles or that end on edges of steep cliffs will allow Arthurians or TDD to be captured or killed? Sorry, I messed this up. When building roads, come on. When building roads, is it true that building roads in circles or that end at the edge of a steep cliff will allow Arthurians or TDD to capture or kill large numbers of Vikings?
It's true. No. I think, people are underestimating the basic intelligence of the Vikings. Now, maybe if you put some loot scattered around, they might just keep looking and hoping it pops up again. But even then, I think your average Viking wouldn't fall for that.
There's another one from Bad Lunar Rising. When Lucrepans are wearing armor made from materials gathered in nature, and those materials have a texture, some... I need to read these questions before I ask them. Alright. The Lucrepans are wearing armor made of materials gathered in nature, and those materials have texture somewhat like a burr that might get stuck in animal hair. Will they get stuck to animals in a caravan? Would Arthurians and Vikings be able to toss them up against the tower and have them stick like a Velcro, and then have flies on flypaper watch them wiggle in tiny little arms and legs trying to peel off until the hot sun dries them out?
Somebody obviously heard bad Lucrepan stories growing up as a child and, wants to see the wee lad suffer. Yeah, that's about all I've got on that.
Ladoween asks, will there still be negative Veil effects if Stealthers put together a 12-man warband?
You know the answer to that.
Okay. From Medic, what penalties will a character get when he or she dies and respawns? How long will the penalties last, and can they be cured?
Oh, you know I'm not going to answer that yet. Eh, Boy, how many times, right? Not you asking this question, but how many times have I had to say the same thing, which is death has to have a sting. That's all there is to it. We've been very clear about that. It's more old school, and it also makes sense for an RVR game. So will there be penalties? Yes. Will there be potentially penalties that can't be cured right away? Yes, there needs to be. Because if you can simply be cured by, whatever healer or healers are in your group, and especially if you have a large group and a large number of healers, it makes, death almost meaningless. Of course, depending on how the heals work. Obviously, if the heals are limited uses or one use, then certainly you have to be a little bit more careful. But no, death will have a sting, I guarantee it.
Daro10 asked, what is the biggest or most exciting component you're looking forward to adding to the game between now and Beta 1?
Oh, sieges. As we're just getting started on them. That's where, personally, my excitement for Beta 1 is. It's not just the classes, those will be fine. They're not the most exciting choices we could have made, but they're the most, necessary, for Beta 1. But Sieges, that's when I get absolutely excited, because I think there's so much we can do to make this game interesting, for you folks. And I have no doubt we're going to do it.
Rocket Mist asks, are there going to be a lot of big trees and environmental items in the game? Will you be able to climb the trees or perhaps jump on enemies from top?
Yep, already part of the plan. The trees in our game are real trees. They're physics objects. So the idea is, yep, you can drop down on them like Errol Flynn did.
Medic asks, can you progress your character's agility over time, and if so, how? Given the importance of movement speed in combat in order to kite or catch enemies, are you concerned that the meta for many classes that might be to put most of your starting stat points into agility at character creation?
Sure, the idea, am I concerned about? Sure, then the idea there, of course, is you would have an advantage right from the beginning, and if we go with a modified soft cap, that you would always have an advantage. Absolutely. But keep in mind, or absolutely, it's something that we're concerned about. But again, keep in mind that, when you look at all the choices you're going to make in this game, that, yes, could a very light character who doesn't want to wear heavy armor, who puts everything they can in agility, have an advantage, when they reach the soft cap versus other people, because they reach the soft cap faster. Sure, there's going to be an advantage there. On the other hand, if that's where they put it, the fact that their encumbrance is going to be lower, their carrying capacity, is going to be lower, that they only going to have to wear lighter armor, which means, sure, they would be good at some things, not so good at other things, and not really useful, especially during a siege, right? You really don't want a lot of clothies or very, very lightly armored people running around with all the things that are going to be going on during a siege. So, sure, are there going to be some advantages? Absolutely. But you can make that same argument for somebody, who'd put more points into strength and put everything they can into strength. So this is something, obviously, that we're going to be balancing over time, but it's nothing that I am at all concerned with.
I like Odovik's question here. Will the Vox become sentient with an AI that would get bored of crafting arrows all day long? And would you object to having it talk back to the crafter? Perhaps even a reputation system where you can befriend your Vox?
I'd love that. I mean, that goes back to so many old fantasy books where, swords and other things were sentient. It goes back to a character of mine back actually in college. I carried a demon-infused sword who the GM made female and gave her a personality. So that was pretty interesting. So yeah, I'd love to do something like that. Are we going to do something like that? Yeah, that would be a real stretch goal, real stretch of a stretch goal. It would be cool, but we don't have the time nor the engineers to do something like that in a meaningful way. Certainly before launch.
Tom Minkar asks, if I made a shield with the CSE or CU logo and send it to you all, would you hang it over the couch?
Oh, absolutely. If it's cool, absolutely.
Temenuous asks, is there a very BSC type of ammunition for siege weapons planned or more aligned with Archer type ammo, only scaled up?
There are some BSC ideas in Siege. We'll talk about them way down the road.
Will it be possible, this is by Stanliger 85, will it be possible to set traps for siege engines so they get stuck and need to be reassembled? Or will people need to pull them?
Yep. Traps are absolutely confirmed. You should be able to use them to defend your territory, your keep, your whatever. We've talked about that in the depths as well.
Epsilon QC asks, when will we hear more about crafting classes?
At some point during Beta 1. Certainly keep in mind that we've said there's a crafter class and not multiple crafter classes, and that it's your choice of abilities that define exactly what kind of crafter you want to be. We could change it. We have no plans of changing that yet. And by yet, I mean we haven't even discussed changing it. But it is something that we would certainly entertain if we didn't like the current, plan.
Casper 23 asks, will orders be able to make their own order emblem or have their members put it on their shields or cloaks?
Right now, that's reserved for guilds. I don't know what JB thinks, but certainly guilds, the ability to do that is going to be at least for the guilds.
I believe that was our last question.
Wow. Damn. Okay. Awesome. So, since that was the last question, and it's 10 minutes, almost 10 before 5, I'll use it for a wrap-up. So, look, folks, another great week. Lots of stuff got in, and not just, oh yeah, he's just talking about, programming, or just talking about art. No, I'm talking about the testing that went on all week, that went on all weekend, that hopefully will go on this week. When we were doing rehab, there wasn't a lot of testing that we could do. Certainly not compared to what we used to do. You've noticed, I hope, that that's changing. And it will continue to change as we move forward. We've got lots of things in mind to make beta a lot more interesting, certainly than alpha was. We're sorry alpha wasn't as interesting. It's going to get more interesting, certainly over the coming weeks and months. But beta will definitely be more interesting. We want you folks to have some fun. Alpha was more about, let's just get the systems in. Let's get testing done. We were hoping that we would have been out of alpha, certainly, and into beta where we could have done the fun things. But rest assured, when we go into beta, it will not, absolutely not, be like the alpha. There is zero chance of that happening, and I mean zero. We won't call beta if it's like alpha was. That would be dumb, and that would be a betrayal of your trust. So just wait and see what happens. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out in the next few months, and I don't mean just from the code side or the programming side, stuff from my end as well. So I don't want to hype. We did this last year with the March to beta when we thought we were in much better shape than we actually were. So I'm not going to do that again. But I will say, and you folks, can see it, have seen it, that the game is coming more into view every single week. whether it's, assets like the dock, VFX, Siege. It's a whole lot of things. Nothing huge. Nothing, oh my God, this means the game is coming. Because there's very little that we could add that would prove that. It's a matter of, you've heard the phrase death by 1,000 cuts. This is beta by 1,000 ads. Because that's really what it is. We keep adding things to the game to make it feel more like a game and make it feel more like a world. That's what we're going to be doing, and have been doing and will continue to do until we get into beta. So keep watching, keep helping us out by going into tests. I know they aren't always the most exciting, but you folks can help us out so much when you do that. We find so many little things, or find usability issues, or we get great feedback, as we have from so many of our testers so far. And the more that you can do, the faster we get into beta. I mean, that's just the bottom line. The more problems we find early, the easier it is to iterate on them. So, in the coming weeks, especially over the summer, when you see the messages going out, especially for weekend tests, if you can jump in, that'd be great. Because who knows, maybe you're the person, that finds a bug. Maybe you're the person who comes up with a repro that helps us, track down a bug. That's what we need you folks for, especially now as we are trying to, get into beta, as quickly as possible. So, something to keep in mind. Again, as always, we thank you for your patience. We really thank you for your patience. We thank you for your support. Expect an update tonight with the user stories, with some more art, with a nice link or a link to the animation that Scott did, which is, again, pretty cool for something that's not meant to be, oh my God, this is the most awesome Great Axe, ability ever, as well as lots of other stuff. I'll let you know, hopefully within an hour, about what tests we'll have. As of 4 o'clock, we were certainly looking good, at least for an alpha, beta, and IT Wormling test, where you could see the island again, but with all of George's rampaging improvements. Some of them will be subtle. There's lots of detail about everything that goes in. The key for you folks, certainly if you can jump in, is let us know how the frame rate is. If you were part of the test during the week, where you went in and actually told us what your frame rate was, this should be higher, not lower. Don't expect a huge improvement, because it was more about making things better than just getting a few more cycles out of it. But it shouldn't be. It certainly shouldn't be a lot worse. Based on what I saw an improvement. So hopefully everyone else will as well. So that's it. And again, thank you one and all. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.